Hey guys, what's up from Pokemon Classics, reminding you that the classics never go out of style. Now, there's no doubt that 2020 has been an incredibly volatile year in the Pokemon market, really in just about every phase of life. With all sorts of new collectors entering the hobby, I worry that some people lack the historical context to make educated and informed decisions when making purchases, selling cards, and so today's video is not a video for those that are interested in flipping, looking for that quick, short-term return on investment. Rather, I want to give you some of my background, some of my history, with items that I view as safe bets. That's the name of the video today, is safe bets, and by that I mean long-term investments. These are items that I'm constantly looking to hold in the long term, and historically speaking, I've had the advantage of watching these items appreciate every year consistently over the course of over a decade. So I want to share some of those tips with you guys today. Ultimately, this is not financial advice. You guys need to make up your own decisions with regard to your level of safety, your level of capital, how much risk you're willing to take. However, considering what the past has indicated, these are things that I think are pretty safe. You're probably not going to experience any massive drop in popularity or any massive growth on the supply side. So anyway, let's go through 3 investments today that I think are good, safe bets. Now, just for context, you guys are seeing my very first submission to PSA. It was only 6 cards. It was originally their 6-card voucher submission when you sign up for a membership at PSA. And as you can see, the date on that was from 2011. Now, I was collecting for years before that. However, I didn't start personally grading cards until 2011, which was almost a decade ago. As you can see, this submission went pretty well with a number of 9s, including the PSA 9 First Edition Charizard, which I still have in my collection today. One of the interesting things to note here, though, is all the way back in 2009, PSA 9 First Edition Charizard was listed for sale on eBay. There were multiple listings at the cost of $400. And I know that's going to blow some minds out there, especially for those of you who have only been in the hobby for a few years and have only seen those really elevated price points. However, everything has grown over time as interest has also grown. And one of the main factors is that discretionary income that has developed from collectors as they've developed their collections, as they've grown older, as they've developed financial security in their very own jobs. And I think that's one of the things that's driving this long-term growth and what's going to allow some of these items to further appreciate as we move into the future. So today, the 3 items that I want to talk about are 1, vintage sealed product. And the reason why I think this one is a good option is the supply side. As time's going on, the supply for vintage sealed product is slowly decreasing. And actually, if 2020 is any indication, it's decreasing at a much more rapid pace than what we've seen in the past. Now, Charizards are on the flip side. Those I think are good investments because of how iconic that card is, or that Pokemon is. There's many different Charizard cards, but the demand is there, and that demand is organic, and it's constantly growing as more and more cross collectors are entering, as more people are finding themselves with the discretionary income to fulfill that void in their childhood of earning that Charizard that they never could pull out of a pack or acquire with their limited financial means. Lastly, I want to talk about some historical items, some rare items that have a unique release, and those ones I think are valuable because as collectors mature and grow older, they're going to want that story behind the card. They're going to want to feel connected to the history of Pokemon in the same way that we see a lot of Magic the Gathering collectors gravitating towards those special release cards. Or if you want to use video games as an example, there are a number of video game collectors that are drawn to those unique, rare release items in vintage video game history. So the more historical an item is, the more iconic it is, I think that's going to drive demand and long-term value as well. Now, what I love about sealed product is it has a vast utility to collectors. Basically, any collector can find some sort of value in boxes, whether it's as a box collector. Maybe you're seeking original packs and you collect pack art. Or maybe you're looking for a box break, in which case it would be advantageous to have those boxes to open up on camera for a YouTube video, for a live stream on Twitch, which I know is really popular right now. Or maybe somebody is looking for the individual cards and hoping to hit those good pulls in high quality grades and send them off to a grading company. In that way, booster boxes appeal to the masses, and that's something that I'd never see really changing. Now, some boxes do have a greater supply out in circulation than others, and that's maybe where some of the education can come in. But really, when it comes down to it, I think that any of the old vintage Wizards of the Coast boxes are just going to see growth in terms of their value as that supply diminishes. A diminishing supply is one market factor to keep an eye on as we're looking for what's a good, safe, long-term investment. Now, there's obviously been a number of box openings on YouTube. I love watching those myself. Guys like PokeRev, Leonhardt, which he's an amazing guy, by the way, and doing a lot of great things for the hobby. Even Logan Paul went on record opening a first edition base box that encompassed a lot of popular YouTubers across the platform. The point is, as those boxes are purchased and opened, that supply is going to be diminishing. And there are a number of YouTubers who have made their entire career as a YouTuber on pack openings. What that tells me is that there's a demand for those boxes. And over time, that demand is going to stay relatively stable, maybe even increase as others try to replicate their success. But the supply is going to become more difficult to find. For that reason, I think we're going to see some long-term advantages to holding sealed product, particularly the boxes that are hard to find, particularly that Wizards of the Coast era. Now, I wanted to share some of my sealed product with you. I'm not a sealed product collector. I'm really more of a set collector personally. PSA cards are my specialty, Wizards of the Coast era. But when I saw the opportunity back a few years to buy some boxes at what I thought was a good price, that's something I had to jump on. So here is the first edition. You can see the stamp down in the corner. Gym Challenge box. And Gym Challenge is one of my favorite sets of all time. I've actually succeeded at collecting all of those cards in PSA 10, just the holographics anyway, from first edition. And so having the box in the collection just sort of cements the collection as a whole. I think it makes a good collection piece. These have been stored away in storage for a number of years, and I have no intention on selling it at this point. I have no intention on opening it. It's just one of those things that I'm keeping stashed away in the collection, and who knows what'll happen with it. Maybe someday I will feel the need to open it and have that experience of opening a booster box, opening all those sealed packs, reacting to those cards. But for now, it's just something that I think is a good long-term buy and hold situation. I've got one more box I want to show you guys. Now, in addition to the Gym Challenge box, I also have this first edition Jungle box, and this was the second box released by Wizards of the Coast. So these are getting pretty difficult to find. Lately, there's been sort of a flood of them on the market. If you look up the prices, they are retracing a bit, but overall, I'm not too concerned about that. And I'll show you guys why here in a second. But this one is in really good condition. The tab is flipped down a little bit, so you can do the peek test if you want to see the packs inside. And what I like about this is the Jungle set is one of the sets that I don't have any PSA 10 holos for. It's a very difficult to grade set when you're taking holos out of the pack due to print lines and chipping and centering issues that really plague this set. So it's kind of nice knowing I have a box that I can always break at some point if I want to try my luck at grading and opening those packs. But for the meantime, I'm happy just to sit on it. Some people have asked me, like, how can you stand keeping a box sealed? And honestly, it's not that difficult for me. That's just my personality. There are certain things that I'm after as a collector, and other things I can just kind of stash away and hold and forget them for the time being. But definitely a really cool product with the first edition booster boxes. So this is why historical context is important, because our past informs where we're going in the future. And so the first edition base box was originally selling for $1,500 in 2011 when I started, which for me, that seems like a ton of money. Like when I was collecting then, I was fresh out of college and I didn't have a lot of discretionary income to spend on this. So that was just completely out of my league. But we look back now and that's incredibly cheap. Like if I had the opportunity to buy something for that price, I know I would jump on it, and I know pretty much every other collector would as well. From 2011, if we get to about the midpoint between then and now, prices had appreciated to $12,000. That's a really nice appreciation for any investment, and especially as we get to 2020, when prices still seem to be going up on this item. It's hard to tell because it only sells once a year, twice a year maybe, but we've got public sales of about $200,000 and in some cases $200,000 plus for just one sealed box. Similarly, we could take a more middle ground box like the first edition Jungle Box, which in 2011 originally sold for $197. 2016, it was up to $550, so nice appreciation there over the course of 5 years. And then if we tack on about another half a decade, it's been rounding out at about $25,000 this year in 2020. Now again, there is a bit of a retrace going on, so I'm not sure right now would be the ideal time to buy until prices stabilize a bit. However, that's really the midpoint. We've seen some go for more, some go for a little bit less. Even if they drop down to their pre-Logan Paul levels, as I know a lot of people are concerned about, we'd still be looking at over $10,000 a box. I also want to take something like the first edition Neo Genesis box. Now there's one of these currently at auction with PWCC, and I know I'm really interested to see where that ends. I think they actually have a couple of Neo Genesis boxes up. But that set is on fire right now. It's one of my favorite sets of all time, and it has some really big cards in it like Typhlosion, Lugia. The Feraligatr number 5 I know is one that a lot of people are after. And to go from $255 up to $880, and now presumably, with bidding still going at $50,000, it could still rival that price. It's hard to say when something like that that's rare, that's scarce, that's highly desirable, comes up for sale. It's really anybody's guess. It's whatever somebody's willing to pay for it. So those are just some of the reasons why I think sealed product has a good future ahead of it within the collectibles market. My category number 2 would be Charizards. Charizards hold a great demand within the hobby and even beyond the hobby, and that's because there's a cultural significance to Charizard. This is the Pokemon card that is best known. You can ask people on the street who've never played the game, who weren't in their childhood during the time of Pokemon, and they'll be familiar with Charizard. We've seen people outside of the Pokemon hobby like Logan Paul suddenly have this interest and spark this new interest in people across the world, having this ripple effect. We've seen it featured on things like Pawn Stars when Gary came in with his massive Charizard collection and had to put the ultimate flex on the Pokemon hobby. For those reasons, I think Charizard is going to see growing demand over the years, especially as those that are investors or cross collectors see their opportunity to diversify their portfolio with an investment in something outside their typical realm of expertise. That's sort of the purpose of diversifying. In fact, with Charizard, it's such an iconic card that this really transcends just one set. We think about the first edition base Charizard, PSA 10, reaching these record prices. However, it's really all Charizards across the board that have seen some level of growth. Now, of course, there has been retrace lately, and I think that makes sense, especially for the ones that don't have that same level of rarity and scarcity. But still, if we look at the historical data, we've seen a massive growth in Charizards almost across the board, especially if we're talking vintage over time. And with so many people entering the hobby, so many people interested in cross collecting, I think that demand is just going to grow, especially as people's discretionary income, again, that's something I can't stress enough, as people reach their 30s, their 40s, and they're established in their job and they have the money to spend, they're going to want to relive that childhood. That's when collectibles flourish. So looking at first edition base Charizard, I wanted to use a PSA 9 just because it's a little bit more fair of a comparison. The 10 is God tier status, but the 9 is accessible. In 2011, when I first started collecting graded cards, that card was $400. In 2016, that card had appreciated to $2,200. And now in 2020, they've been selling for in between $35,000 and, in one case, $70,000. With an average right now of somewhere of about $40,000. Now again, even if that card dropped down to its pre-Logan Paul levels, to the pre-mania that Pokemon had seen in late October, that's still a really solid growth for an investment. Similarly, we could look at first edition Shining Charizard, using PSA 10 for an example, going from $500 to $850 and to $20,000. Again, there's been some that have been higher, some that have retraced a bit, but the trend is still there. We could look at the reverse legendary Charizard, the reverse holographic one, which is a beautiful card, fireworks background. That one went from $65 in a PSA 9 up to $292, and then right now weighing in somewhere in the $3,000 realm. Like I said, I see Charizards as a good long-term investment, so I like to hold some Charizards, and here we have first edition PSA 9 base set Charizard. Absolutely stunning card. This one was one that I always wanted as a kid, could never quite find, and so having it as part of my collection now was one of those major milestones that I was really, really happy to be able to accomplish. Then we've got the first edition PSA 10 Shining Charizard, and the Neo Destiny set is actually my favorite of all of the Pokemon sets, and the Shining cards, one of the major reasons. Those cards are so amazing. They're actually easier to grade than the regular holos, but they're much more difficult to find, so that's where the issue with value comes in, is just with the scarcity. Then we've got the Legendary Collection Reverse Holographic. Now this has like the Fireworks holo to it. It hasn't been used ever since, and it was just a one-of-a-kind set and a really cool addition on the classic artwork of Charizard. This one I only have in a 9. I had missed several opportunities to acquire this card in a PSA 10, so maybe a little bit of regret back then, but as far as Charizards go, this one is really cool. Most of my collection actually stopped at Neo Destiny. However, the Expedition set was a set that I always really liked. This Charizard from Expedition seems really unique. It's got the 3D artwork, and that was something that's very different from the original Wizards of the Coast cards. I actually got this one from Gem Mint Pokemon back in a trade in like 2013 or 14. He might remember it, maybe he doesn't, but that's where this one came from. All right, the third and final item that I would regard as a great long-term investment, something that's a safe bet, would be items with a historical release to it, something with historical significance that tells a story. Among these categories, I would include things like trophy cards, which I don't personally collect, but have tremendous value and have been appreciating extensively. Error cards, which I actually love. I think error cards are a bit of a niche item, but they're something that a lot of people really like because there's a unique history there. And then production cards or pre-production cards, things that we might consider test prints, which are also a very niche item, but man, is there some cool history and some high scarcity around those things. What I like about these items is that there is an opportunity cost to them. Any collector that's entering the market as a new collector, slowly as they build their experience, their knowledge, their collection, they're going to find themselves drawn to the history of Pokemon collecting, and that's going to take them back to some of these historical items. Items like the E3 sealed Pikachu, which was originally released at the E3 convention in 1998, before the Pokemon cards were ever released publicly to the regular United States population. That's a really interesting thing. It actually predates the first release of Pokemon cards. Now, the E3 Pikachu comes in two different variants. The one that has yellow cheeks was distributed in a Nintendo Power magazine, I believe, and so that one's very easy to find. But the one with the red cheeks was given away exclusively at the E3 conference before Pokemon was released to the public. I actually have a few that are sealed, and then I have one that's not sealed, and I actually have a couple graded ones as well. Actually, I think I only have one graded one. I think I might have sold the other one. I'd have to check my inventory and storage, but I can't do that today. Similarly, you have items like the Pokemon game Demo Pack. Now, the Demo Pack was an item that was distributed with shadowless cards in it. There's nothing particularly valuable about the cards themselves, but the pack was used as a way to promote Pokemon and to be used as like a experimental training piece to get new faces interested and introduce them to this new card game. We've got the Demo Pack from 1998. These weren't available for sale. They were distributed at the E3 conference along with leagues and other places. And again, it's just 24 shadowless cards. There's nothing particularly rare or valuable about those cards, but it's the pack that makes it all worthwhile because it tells a story. There's something unique about it. It's a really cool item. Similarly, the trainer deck cards like this trainer deck Machamp were released for that same purpose of given to leagues to use to help teach kids how to play the game and to pull new faces into the hobby. All three of these I find significant to our history, And for that reason, I think they have a lot of desirability amongst collectors, especially as those collectors grow and mature in their own collections. These items become some of the focal points. If it can tell a story, if it has a unique release, people are going to be drawn to that. So looking at some of the historical trends for those items, the sealed E3 Pikachu was originally $50 when I first started collecting. And then in 2016, it appreciated a little bit to $150. And right now, if you can find them sealed, which is pretty difficult to do, they sell for about $1,000. I believe there's a sealed one up for sale right now with PWCC at auction. I think it's at like $880, but a nice appreciation from a card with some historical value. Similarly, the demo pack going from $70 to $250, and then finalizing right now in 2020 at about $1,500. That's the value of scarcity, of historical release, and again, I'm really happy to have something like that in the collection. So here are my final thoughts in closing. If we're thinking about long-term investing, we need to understand supply, we need to understand the demand, and we need to understand the rarity and the history behind cards. This is where education comes in handy. Most importantly though, you need to buy what you enjoy and are comfortable collecting personally. A buy and hold strategy means it's going to be in your collection for a long time, and there might be some short-term blips on the radar just like we're seeing right now. That's to be expected, that's normal. But if you put all your eggs in one basket of hoping for some sort of massive financial gain in a short period of time, you're just going to have a bad time. That's generally not how these types of investment works. Now, there are some flippers that flip cards really successfully. Generally, that's not a strategy that I've used. It's not a strategy I would endorse. There's a lot of risk that comes with that. Can it be done? Yeah, probably. I would argue too, if that's your goal of collecting, is just to make the money in the short term and not actually appreciate and enjoy the cards, that you're doing yourself and the hobby a disservice. So just keep that in consideration, that make the cards your priority, the collecting, enjoy the experience. Don't just look to make a quick buck, because if it sounds easy, if it seems too easy, it probably is too good to be true. Also, you need to take some considerations. Long-term investing requires the capital necessary to buy the items you're looking at. And a lot of those items are going to be a bit expensive, especially since we've already passed the initial stage of appreciation. A lot of these cards have already doubled, tripled, quadrupled, maybe increased in price tenfold. And so it's going to be an investment up front. And that's one of the things that's difficult about this hobby right now. And it also requires patience. To hold cards for a long term, you're not going to get that return on your investment instantaneously. And again, it requires the knowledge of the cards you're purchasing. If you rush into a purchase or a sale, ill-equipped and undereducated, you're just going to have a bad time. And remember, nothing is guaranteed. So ... Well, I think that what that means is, so be prepared. Enjoy the experience. Roll with the punches. Nobody wins every time. All of us strike out sometimes. We all have regrets. We all have missed opportunities, but that's what makes collecting fun. If this hobby were that easy to be successful at, to get every single item you ever wanted under market value, to make money on with every single sale, it just wouldn't be fun. Collecting is ultimately about the experience. It's about the journey, not the destination. So enjoy every minute of it, immerse yourself in the hobby, and I think you too can make some successful investing decisions. I'm Pokemon Classics, reminding you that the classics never go out of style. Thanks for watching this video, and we'll see you with the next one. Bye, everybody.